think you have to bear in mind as well, at B2 level, you shouldn't be understanding everything. You're still going to have gaps in your knowledge when you listen, especially to a native speaker. You should really be understanding 80 to 90% of what is said. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another epic episode of the Beyond Fluency podcast. My name is Liam.
And I'm Ramps.
What are we talking about today, Ramps?
We're chatting about the common fears that people have when it comes to language learning, particularly when we talk about language learning for adults.
Children have no fear. I can tell you that for a fact from the amount of time I spend in the hospital with mine.
It sounds like an incredible song as well, or even just a quote. Children have no fear. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Depending on your intonation, it can be biblical as well.
Yes.
Have no fear.
Go a little bit deeper, the voice one octave lower, and you can maybe add a bit of a shake as well. Children have no fear.
Nice.
Does that
Okay,
work?
we're getting Shakespearean with the delivery.
Anyway, getting back on track.
Right. Yes.
Today we're chatting about common fears that people have when it comes to language learning.
Yeah.
Liam, is there something that comes to mind, or should I start us off today?
I don't know about you, but one that comes up often for me is that many people have a fear of speaking to native speakers. What have you noticed with that one?
I get that one a lot. It's funny because it's one of those fears that it isn't directly linked to the person's level of English.
Right.
One of the things that they cite as the reasons why they're afraid of speaking to natives is understanding. They often say that the wording that natives use, idiomatic expressions, phrasal verbs, the pace at which people speak, and of course, as well, accent.
Yeah, same thing. I think the thing with fear, it becomes a block to staying in the moment. Most people, if you work with them and you work through that block and you give them techniques to work with, are able to manage a conversation with a native speaker no matter what level they are. Fear is such, it's not just an emotional response, it's a physiological response as well. When we're scared, we fall into fight, flight, and freeze mode. Our body physically responds to that fear. So if you build it up over time, it gets worse and worse, and then your body just instantly switches. What is the most common one for people is freeze mode, because you know, fighting with someone who's just asking you a question about what you do, probably
It's a
not
big thing.
appropriate. Running away in a business situation, also probably not appropriate. So most people go into freeze, and at which point, like, the eyes go wide, the adrenaline starts pumping, your heart starts pumping fast, feels like it's beating out your chest, and in your mind you're going, oh my God, I don't know what to do, I don't understand what he's just said, what am I going to say, I can't find the words, right? And you go into this negative cycle. So the first
Yeah.
thing I do when people share that with me is give them ways to manage A, the physiological response, and then B, the language response.
How do they manage then the language response? What would you recommend as a way to deal with the language one? And then we'll go to the physiological.
If you calm the physiological, your brain's going to start working again, and therefore the language will be much easier. Physiological response, breathing. Take a deep breath and out, and then continue. Getting oxygen into your system will slow your heart rate down. That's the first thing you need to do in any situation like that. In terms of language, we covered my favorite technique for these situations, which is mirroring. So using mirroring, repeating back to someone what they've just said to make sure you've understood. Rather than saying, can you repeat that, please? When they're going to say exactly the same thing. If you didn't understand, it's not going to help you. Rather than saying, I didn't understand, you say, let me get this right. Is this what you're asking me? Or in summary, is that what you've just said? At which point they're either going to say yes, no, or nearly, but you missed this bit, and explain the bit that you didn't understand again.
Yeah. Often when people are afraid of speaking with natives, apart from the things that we've already mentioned, it's usually familiarity.
Right.
They are unfamiliar with the sounds, they're unfamiliar with the expressions and language. So, as a means of preparing yourself for potentially having to speak with someone who's native, I always say to my clients, okay, so now we know you need to start listening to natives English speakers speaking. Start listening to podcasts, start listening to the news. I often recommend that if my clients stream news on YouTube. You can stream it for free. Al Jazeera, Sky, whatever it is. I like Al Jazeera because it's a bit broader in relation to
I
accents
think the
as
BBC
well.
is very good as well because again they've got BBC World Service, so they're reporting from all around the world. Again,
Exactly.
you're gonna get a range of accents and different types of English.
Another one that I say with people, with clients with the fear of natives is that start to think of every interaction you have in English as a lesson, as a practice session. Because
Mm.
if you are, in fact, working on developing your English and becoming better at it, every interaction that you have in English is essentially an opportunity for you to practice, whether you're writing an email or listening to something or speaking with someone. Viewing this as an opportunity to practice your English means you open up to learning.
Mm.
It's sort of admitting that I'm not a finished product yet. I still got a long way to go.
Yeah.
So that's another one I give as a form of sort of challenging this one.
Yeah, I like that one. And I think you have to bear in mind as well, at B2 level, you shouldn't be understanding everything. You're still going to have gaps in your knowledge when you listen, especially to a native speaker. You should really be understanding 80 to 90% of what is said. So there's always room for learning. As an advanced level, you're going to be understanding 90 to 95%. And then as a proficient level, 95 to 100. But armed with that in mind, it takes the pressure off. It's like, oh, actually, yeah, I shouldn't be understanding. What can I learn from this conversation? It's empowering to remember I'm not going to understand everything. Don't hold yourself to those kind of standards. You're looking for progress, not for perfection. The other thing you can do, which again, if you want more details about, you can go back to episode 1 and look at reading and listening as a practice skill. The reason why it's a great skill is A, you're improving your listening comprehension, making the connection between words as they're written and words as they're spoken by a native speaker. And B, you're training yourself to go through a period of time without stopping to wonder what words mean. Because the other thing about listening to native speakers is getting stuck when you don't understand something. You block yourself by going, "Oh, I don't know what that meant. What was that word? I know what that word means when it's by itself, but in this phrase, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand." And then next thing, you've spent 30 seconds to a minute in your head thinking about not knowing what has been said, and then you've missed a big chunk of conversation because it's continued, and then you're lost.
Another common one, what would you say? A common
Another
fear.
comment. Oh, fear of making mistakes. I
Yes.
can relate to this one. Yeah,
I think this one
definitely.
probably goes beyond language. Do you
Oh,
think
crikey, yeah.
there is a connection between how someone learns a language and their personality?
Absolutely.
So if a person is a type of person who avoids mistakes, who does not like making mistakes in general, it kind of falls into language as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfectionism is a particular driver.
Yeah.
I think, especially with the people that we work with, me personally, I get a lot of perfectionists.
As I was preparing for today, I wondered, you are native, I'm bilingual.
Right.
So as a bilingual person, making mistakes as part of language learning is something that I just sort of I learned that by the time I was 7, 8, 9, maybe 10. So even when I was learning Italian, this is certainly not one of the fears I had, the fear of making mistakes. So I wonder if there's a correlation there between people who grow up speaking multiple languages as opposed to people who grow up speaking predominantly one language and then only having to learn a language much later in life. I thought of my own path of learning Italian and how it all went along.
Hmm.
And I can definitely say that the fear of making mistakes was it's the furthest thing. If anything, I wanted to make mistakes
Right.
because I knew that it's from mistakes that I will learn. And there were a few people that I made it a point to speak with almost on a daily basis at the time when I could just, put two, three sentences together
Hmm.
because I knew they'd correct me.
Right. Yeah,
So
I
that's it.
think that you have to take into account the experience the person has. You don't have a fear of making mistakes in language, but do you have a fear of making mistakes in other things? For me, my fear comes from the response of people when I make mistakes. It's more
Mm,
about someone laughing at me because I make a mistake.
I think I'm going to start asking deeper questions when clients say to me, I'm afraid of speaking, the
Mm.
fear of making mistakes.
When it comes to language, though, it's to do with school. With any language, usually where you start to learn it is at school. You learn a pattern of behavior based on how you're taught that language at school.
This is another thing where I think we come with, this is a great conversation because I think we come with two different perspectives.
Mhm.
So for me, as a South African, I don't associate learning language with school.
But you're
For me,
bilingual,
learning language is based on very much on where you live and your circle of friends, right?
right?
So the country is divided into 9 provinces, and
Mhm.
every province will have 2 or 3 dominant languages. If you move it to a province where your language is not spoken, you'll speak that language at home in the house, but outside you definitely have to learn the local language. And so you see how maybe this makes sense why there's a
Mm.
less of a fear of making mistakes because when you learn a language orally, you're getting corrected all the time. you know, but you're getting corrected on pronunciation, you're getting corrected on structure, like constantly.
But
And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I agree with you. I want to jump in here
yeah,
because
yeah.
I, I think when we're talking about fear, especially with the people that we work with, often it's the fear of speaking because the way that they learn English was in school was very grammar focused. It was very book focused. Sit
Very
and do
true.
these exercises, and there wasn't much practice at speaking, and therefore they are used to learning the language in a written and reading
Very
type
academic
way.
approach. Yeah.
Very academic,
Yeah,
exactly.
because
So the problems that they have are listening and speaking because those are the ones that weren't practiced when they first started learning the foundations of language.
it makes sense. But as I said to you, with me as well, when I was learning, there were certain people I would speak with in Italian.
With anything in life, you are the sum total of the five people that you spend most time with. So when it comes to learning a language, who are the five people you want in your corner for learning a language? Who's going to support you? We're here. You can count
Yeah.
us, right?
Yeah. 1, 2 here. There's 2 of us here.
Exactly. We're here every week. We're not going anywhere. We love and support what you're doing, and we're telling you that you can do it. Who else is going to give you that? Who else do you know that speaks English that will support your language journey and who will do it without judgment? Spend more time with those people. Speak to those people more. Or look for those people within a community. They are out there. Spend more time speaking to them, and you will find that you will soon feel much better about the whole situation. If you're
Yeah.
looking for your support group, put the message in the comments below,
Yes.
and we're here. We listen. There isn't a day that goes by that we aren't checking for comments, for people that we can help, for how things are going.
A quick recap before we sign off. Feeling fearful about your English, whether it's speaking to native speakers or public speaking or whatever the reason may be, just remember it's normal, firstly. Secondly, use a reading and listening tip that we spoke about in episode 1. Listen a lot to native speakers speaking, maybe a podcast or perhaps.
Ching. Yeah.
Third, approach every interaction in English as a moment to practice.
Finally, mirroring for those times when you aren't quite sure. Repeat back to them what you have understood. Give them the opportunity to fill in the blanks. That's it for this week. Thank you very much for being with us. Know that we are here to love and support you on your journey of improvement with English. That's it from me. Thank you, Ramps.
Thank you, Liam. And thanks, guys. Cheers.
Have a good one. Bye.
Ciao.